You know, the next session that we have is NEDx, like we said, our own version of TED Talks. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to welcome to the stage the Vice Chairman of NAREDCO India, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. And joining Sir would be the President of NAREDCO MAHI, Ms. Tara Subramaniam. So this is going to be a fireside chat between Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani and Ms. Tara Subramaniam. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to find it very, very exciting. So over to you, ma'am.
Hi, guys. I think I have the greatest pleasure and a huge responsibility to make Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani open up and talk to us. He doesn't need any introduction at all. All of you have grown under his guidance. He's been a role model for all of you. I have known Niranjan for the last 35 years or more and known many, many, many facets of him. But today I think we are going to just stick to real estate and sales and marketing. So I think we'll give Niranjan 2 minutes to talk about what he thinks you guys should do before I start questioning him. What do you say?
A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much, NextGen, for A, organizing this program, and B, calling me over here, and C, asking me to face Tara, of all the people. So I think that's a lot of it, because unfortunately she knows too much about me. And second, she knows one about me in personal capacity, which is bad enough. And worse, she knows all my finances for 35 years, because I've been dealing with HDFC for that much time, and she's been there. And the fourth, which is even still worse, was the fact that she was a mentor, not only of me, which she taught a lot about finance, but she taught, and my daughter actually did an internship with her for 6 months or more. And she learned a lot. And let me tell you, my daughter learned so much from her that she started a separate call center business. And she started with 12 employees at the age of 23 when she left Thara, and built that company called Zenta at the age of 27, built it to 4,500 employees, and sold it for $100 million US. So that's the kind of mentoring which Tara did to my daughter. So you can imagine my daughter in 6 months did that. So if all of you learn to get mentored by Tara, how much more you can earn from the exposure to Tara, don't forget. So don't get underestimated by what Tara is. She's much, much more than what you can even think to believe. But it's always ready, and I've been putting a tight fist in order to say, oh my God, now what is she going to ask me? But go ahead.
Guys, before I start anything, I need to thank Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani and Rajan Bandilkar. It is because of them that I've become the founder president of MAHI. I'm not going to give you a talk on MAHI right now. Most of you already know about it. If you don't know about it, I will meet you all after the session, because this is not about MAHI. But I'm taking this opportunity to say thank you to both of them. They've been a great support to us for the last 1 year, and they have promised to keep the umbrella on us, inshallah, for the next 30 years. Okay, Niranjan, starting. The Indian real estate sector has been facing many headwinds from the rise in commodity prices and inflation. Do you believe these headwinds for the sector have eased, remained the same, or have gotten worse in recent months?
Headwinds are things which we get every 3 to 5 years. So if it is not that, it is demonetization. If it's not demonetization, it's introduction of RERA. If it is not, it was Lehman crisis many years ago in 2010. And GST coming in and various things which have keep on happening over a couple of years. So I think the cyclical part of real estate is about any economy which is going to take place. So we have to be mentally ready that at some point of time when things are going very well, oh my God, now the time when the markets are likely to move downwards. So I think it's all about ups and downs. But look at the contrarian position. I thought in COVID times, I wouldn't be able to make my sales and it wouldn't do very well. And I was able to sell every inch of unsaleable finished goods that I had. And that was a lot at that point of time. And we did fantastically during a COVID times when the markets otherwise looked very challenging. So as long as you have your ingredients in terms of A, product, B, brand, C, a commitment which is there to the end customers, and you combine that with whatever else you will learn today in terms of sales and marketing, I think you can face any situation that you have in the marketplace that happens. Headwinds are going to happen. Look at the challenge yesterday. I didn't even understand this political situation, though I'm only 72 years old. I mean, I thought it was Devendra Fadnavis to come. Then Devendra Fadnavis said that I will not be in the cabinet. And then finally he lands up to be Deputy Chief Minister in the cabinet. In one day, I was 3 times politically wrong in my head. So be rest assured, we are all going to be wrong at some point of time in the economy. But if you have your fundamentals correct, you will be able to survive those bad moments. And if you're not fundamentally correct, you will be finished. So that's what has happened, unfortunately, to many elements. And it's not only the political elements, it's also the building construction elements. So I think we need to take care of the bottom area of what we have. And the top end will take care of itself and you will be able to ride the waves and all. But your fundamentals in terms of your work have to be very, very correct. Many times people tell me, wow, kitna acha marketing kiya, isliye tumhara jagah bika. Oh, aap to 20% zyada bhav gete hain market mein se. Now, that's not an issue that you really be able to address at a particular point of time, but over a period of time, of giving a good quality, of delivery, of commitment and all. Yeah, there are setbacks that happen. Even my buildings have sometimes gone late due to various problems that we have. But the customer knows for sure that the company never does it. So maybe in 6,000 apartments, 60 apartments are delayed. But it won't be that 3,000 apartments will get delayed. So that won't happen ever. So people do understand the difference, and that's what creates a brand over a period of time. So the satisfaction and consumer-centric thought process that we really need to do is doing. The last point is what's going to happen in the next 6 months. I don't think anybody really knows. But one thing is certain, if you can predict the Russia-Ukraine war, then you can predict when this depression will get over. So if the Russian-Ukraine war gets over in July end, in 3 months from then, the markets will start moving up for sure. Otherwise, whether it would move up or not immediately, we cannot say. So headwinds are going to continue for some time. $110 barrel of oil is certainly not going to help the economy, especially not in India. So I don't see a short-term gain that is really going to happen. Inflation is going to be there. I don't think inflation per se is bad for the real estate market because then the prices anyway of real estate also go up. So inflation doesn't worry me so much, except that the cost of inputs of the products that we have sold is going to be a problem. So I think that is there. But otherwise, inflation is not really the long-term challenge in real estate because the prices of real estate do go up simultaneously. All in all, I think what we really need to see is that we take care of short-term funding that we really need to do. And I think long-term we'll be able to do it. Don't die in the short run because you won't be able to live long. So you have to take care of the funds which are available there, which you need to do and keep up the commitments that we do. But otherwise, I think long-term, the demand for real estate in India is going to continue to grow. My gut feel is that, let me share with you, I was looking up statistics given by Niti Aayog, which talked about what is going to happen 10 years, 2030. And we were talking about the $5 trillion economy. And I always thought real estate was 7% of the GDP of the country, which was there. And they have predicted that in 2030, housing real estate will be 20% of GDP. So the growth of housing and real estate is actually going to grow at a compound of 15 to 20% per year in the next couple of years if the target of what the country needs in terms of housing is going to be fulfilled. And which means 5 times the target which the Prime Minister has talked about in housing, which is 1 crore housing. We're looking at that. So opportunity in housing is immense and enormous. And it depends only if you're able to get your corner of the pie or you're not going to be able to do. And second, of course, how the development of your state really takes place, which looks positive to me. I see a very positive next 5 years. I see a difficult next 6 months.
Before I ask you the next question, I need to make one comment. It's a good thing that you're not a political person because, as you said, you've gone wrong where the political thought is. But you've been a developer, and I think you've been successful on that, and so it's best that you stick to that. Now, my next question is, you said during COVID is when you sold the maximum. I think that is the story of most of the guys here or their families. But having said that, we are all over with COVID. We are dealing with COVID in the best manner that's possible. Prices are going up. Rates of interest have already started to go up. So the idea of cheap housing loan, which was one of the factors for people to buy homes, is no longer there. So what do you suggest, or how do you think these guys should now take it forward?
30 years ago, Tara Subramaniam charged a home loan buyer 16%. How much?
Guys, at that time, the fixed deposit rates were also something like 14%. It all depended on what kind of funds we got, right?
16%, and people still bought. I'm not talking about HDFC. HDFC makes money anyway. But that's a different story.
So this is HDFC, not Tara Subramaniam. Because if Tara Subramaniam was actually minting money and dealing, I would be competing with Priya and not just be her guru.
So long and short of it is that I don't believe that from 6.5%, if it becomes 7.5%, people are not going to buy houses. So that's not going to be the real factor for people not buying a house and buying a house. Number 2, a tip to the people who are marketing here today and to learn from it. 95% of the people who take home loans have a floating rate of interest. So yes, the rate of interest may have gone up now, but over a period of time, it will also come down. So in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, the average rate of borrowing will actually come down over a period of time. So it's only this great inflation which has now taken up just now that is causing the prices of home loans to go up, the interest to go up. So you have to tell your customer that you have a floating rate of interest. The interest rate is high this year, but it's not going to be high in perpetuity. So in reality, when you take a 10, 15, 20-year loan, the interest rates don't become as important. The rate of interest is not going to be as critical as the fact of availability of loan for you. There's a second factor which I want Tara to confirm to you. I was told at a particular point of time, this is about 7 to 10 years ago, that an average person who takes a home loan in India from HDFC prepays 50% to 70% of the people prepay the loan within 10 years or 7 years.
Yeah, the average was about 7 to 8 years.
7 to 8 years. So even a person who takes a 15 or 20-year loan actually prepays that loan in 7 to 8 years. So that itself is indicative to us very clearly that the home loan interest rate at a particular point of time may cause a person to hesitate to take at that point of time. So it is up to us to convince the person that the rate of interest is floating and it's not going to remain in perpetuity the correct same rate, and it can go down because it has gone up just now. The inflation is not so high, is high now. It won't be high in perpetuity, so it'll come down. So you must teach your marketing people, your sales people and the front-end people to convince the buyer who's coming there, who should not hesitate to do it. Of course, some people will think that my EMI, because of this interest rate, is 20,000, and instead of that, it's becoming 21,000. But many of the banks and financial institutions are willing to tweak by having a lower payment of EMI in the beginning and then increase it further. So banks and financial institutions are now reworking their whole thing in order that the first few years you could have a lower EMI to be able to do it, and they're able to restructure your loan if you have that kind of difficulty, provided you have the capability of paying the entire amount of loan. So these things are happening, and we should, as a collective people in the next gen set, be able to put out a note paper. We should prepare a note paper, circulate that to our clients and buyers, that 1% interest rate is not going to be a killer for the purposes of buying a house. And you should be able to do that, because otherwise all the newspapers are saying people are not buying because of higher interest rates. So we should be able to convince them that this is not true. Though there may be some hesitancy in the initial period, but I'm sure if you really put it across correctly, the person will not buy a house because of that 1% interest rate hike.
Okay, another question I have, Niranjan. I find that there have been three kinds of people who've been buying houses. One are real users, end users. The others are investors, and the others are speculators. Now, for the last couple of years, kind of speculators are kind of come down. There are still investors. When I'm talking about investors, I'm talking about people who are buying either as a second home so that they can give it to their children or rent it out because they have surplus money. But now I find that youngsters today, those who are in their 30s and 40s, is when they should be buying their homes, are shying away from buying homes because they want to be flexible in moving around. What is your advice to the next gen to convert these 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds into investing in real estate?
So, bring me any one of them, I'll be able to convince them.
Guys, you've got Niranjan Hiranandani coming to your sales whenever you all want. He's offered it.
India is one of the countries which have zero social security. The moment you are old, if you don't have a house, you're in deep shit. You're going to be in difficulty. For the simple reason, because inflation may take place, and at that point of time, you won't be able to afford even the rental which you're talking about. So investing into a house at a younger age is a far more sensible matter than actually waiting to become old and then actually inventing to a house. So in a country like India, it is imperative to buy a house. In fact, that should be the bottom line, underline of anything that you want to market. To tell people you must buy a house. Number two, banks and financial institutions encourage younger people to take loans because they give longer term loans. So, which you may not get at the age of 55, 60. You won't get a 20-year loan from a bank and financial institution because your capacity to earn salary-wise or otherwise may actually go down. So, we have to actually market it correctly, individually as a company, collectively as NAREDCO, and also inform people that, look, if you don't buy at a younger age, you're really depriving yourself of something which is there. Lastly, you talked about inflation. The real estate is the best insurance against inflation. In the last 30, 40 years, all the people who invested into real estate got saved with the inflation which is there. I've got a building called Lake Castle. In the 90s, 91, we built that building in MAHI. And I sold it at 1,200 rupees a square foot at that point of time. Today, the resale in that same building is 42,000 rupees. Did you catch me? 1,200 rupees a foot. Bloody hell, if I'd kept 5 flats in that building, I would have made more profit in 5 flats out of 250 than in the whole building that I constructed.
Guys don't even hear all this, huh?
So,
He doesn't need that kind of money.
so
Come on.
it's not a question of need. I'm talking about a person who was clever enough to buy a flat at 1,200 rupees, has now got a house in Powai, in one of the best buildings that I've constructed in over a period of years, insured himself, and incidentally, the rental in that building is 62,000 rupees a month, even in Powai, because that building is like that. So you're insuring yourself against old age, you're guaranteeing yourself this, and you've got a hedge against inflation. So I'm not hoping that the inflation will continue at the pace at which it is, but remember, social security is social security. The government doesn't give pensions in old age in India. We still don't have that luxury to be able to do it. So you have to work towards convincing people that, look, please, at a younger age, do buy a house. Please tell the press to write that. You must write articles saying that please buy at a younger age. That's the easiest thing to do. Number two, just remember, I'll tell you a short story, Tara. There was an industrialist who went to a bank to borrow loan money for his business. And at that time, the loan rates were higher. They were 14%. The bank said that we will give you commercial loan for your business at 14%. And that same peon of the same MD of that company went to the same bank for the purpose of home loan, and he got it at 10% at that time. Home loans are still the cheapest loans available in the marketplace. So commercial loans are much higher price. So in reality, taking a home loan is so much more sensible to do. Number two, you get a tax deduction. So that's you get that both for principal and interest. You get a tax deduction, which is available to you. So you have to encourage people to buy a house in order to do that. If you put a combination of all these three factors, one, social security, hedge against inflation, availability of home loan at a very low rate of interest as compared to what you would do in case of commercial loans, a combination of all these factors makes it imperative for you to buy a house. You buy a share, it's a piece of paper, you can never use it. Here you can use it yourself, you can rent it out, you can will it to your children, you can give it to your child for the purpose of use. So why would you not buy a house? I mean, one should not be so stupid, if you can afford it, to not buy a house. It's the reverse. So when you say people are not doing it because they think they don't want. So even if I don't want to stay in my own house, I should actually buy a house and then rent it out. And I can then float around wherever I am to the rest of the country, but at least I have a particular asset, which is my insurance, which is a house.
He's answered my other question, so I'm going to skip that. Because I wanted you to give them advice on 5 of the things that you should tell those next gen guys sitting. You know, I've always, whenever I've given talks to anybody, I've always told people that do not only focus on the success of people like Niranjan. What you need to ask them is where they have failed so that you all don't make the same mistake. Unfortunately, we do not learn from history. We are a race that do not learn from other people's mistake. But I think your new generation, you all are far more savvy than us oldie goldies. I want Niranjan to tell you all what is it that he has done which according to him he's not been successful, and what you all should be careful from not repeating.
It'll take 2 days to finish this answer.
Finish it in 5 sentences.
Anybody who does business has to fail sometime. Anybody who doesn't make mistakes is not taking enough risk. Anybody who doesn't experiment with new ideas and thoughts and has not fallen is not going to be future success. So I've fallen so many times because I keep on trying new things in my life, and I do it even today. So Tara, unfortunately, is very kind to me. She doesn't tell you the bad part about me, about how many times I made mistakes.
That will take 5 days.
Yeah, so that's a problem. So I don't believe that any entrepreneur who's worked for 45 years has not made mistakes. And so I don't see that there is anything wrong about making mistakes. But what she said is more important, is that you have to learn from your mistakes. So we do make mistakes, but we must rectify our mistakes and see that we don't repeat our mistakes again and again. And I think that's the most important fact. The second part is you have to keep on learning. Learning, keep mentors, have people to tell you, and not one mentor, but 5 mentors who will actually guide you and tell you about what is to be improved over there. I remember when I started my career, I grew up South Bombay. So I started looking at buildings at Nariman Point. And I said, okay, all these buildings were constructed at the same time. And there was a price difference between various buildings in Nariman Point at the same point of time. And I found out Maker building, Maker number 5 or 6, I'd gone to see over there. And that Maker number 6 at that point of time was selling at 10,000 rupees. And then I checked another building, and that was selling at 6,000 rupees. So the difference was 6,000 rupees and 10,000 rupees resale during the time when I got into the business of business, approximately. Then I found out at what price was it initially sold, each building. And I found out that Maker number 6, or the one building which I'd seen, was originally sold by makers for 175 rupees a foot, and that other one was sold at 150 rupees a foot. So the difference was 25 rupees a foot. But ultimately, what was the price difference? 50%, and 5,000 rupees a foot difference between the two. So I went to see Mr. Maker, and I asked him why, what was it that you were there? And of course, it took me, I think, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to get an appointment because I was nobody. Finally, I used the influence of my father to talk to his daughter, who was a patient of my father. And then I went and met him. And then he gave me an audience, and I learned from him. And he said, I actually must have spent 20 rupees more to make this building. But ultimately, look at the quality of the building, and I feel proud to say that I made this building. This stuck in my head always, that, it doesn't matter at that point of time that you have really spent more, a little more to create a better product and different product into the whole thing. So he was one of the mentors we had. He didn't know he was my mentor. I just had an audience with him. I remember another experience with a person called Mr. Lokanwala Complex. And I went over there 1981 and or around that time. And I went over there and I talked to many builders. He said, वो खाड़ी में बिल्डिंग बना रहा है, खत्म हो जाएगा, उधर कोई जाना नहीं चाहिए. And he was building 150 buildings in Lokanwala complex, or at least he had a plan of 120 buildings, and he had started about 10 to 15 buildings, and I went and saw them. And I found the elevations in his buildings was so much better than everybody else. And I wondered, I said, how can you do this part of the whole thing? And again, another person who I took maybe 2 months to get an appointment to meet him. And, I met him and all that stuff. So, and he told me a very funny story. He said, I do upgrading of cars. Mr. Shiraj Lokanwala used to upgrade your car. So if you buy a car, you take it to him, he would refurbish it, put you a nice seat cover, put lights. Maybe Deepak Chabria, I don't know. But he told me. So he said, if I can do that for my car, why can I not do for my buildings? Why can't I make my buildings look better? So he was another mentor of mine, and I realized that I need to make nice buildings which look good from outside. Then I made building in Lokanwala complex. I made 11 buildings there. And every time I finished a building, I looked out of the building and I found the roads were bad. There were no street lights. There was no stormwater drain. There was no water supply. There were no gardens, nothing. So I formed an association of builders in Lokanwala complex, including Mr. Lokanwala. With great reluctance, he joined me in this association. And we spent 4 rupees a foot, and I did all the roads of Lokhandwala complex, stormwater drain, street lights, water connection, and got the power connection, power right from main Veera Desai, not Veera Desai road, the main road, right up to the complexes. And we spent just 4 rupees a foot. And that was why I built Powai, because I realized that, you may make very nice buildings, but your whole complex can be horrible. So you learn from people's experience. So 2 things. One, if you're making mistakes, nothing wrong, don't make it again. Number 2, keep looking for good things in other people, whether they are builders or they are, philosophers or other people. I had Dada J.P. Vaswani as my mentor, guru from this thing. Mr. Zaza and we are both doing something for the mission just now to make a monument over there. And you know what? In one of the birthday functions in Pune, Dada J.P. Vaswani told me, not told me, told the whole audience. He said, don't do your best. And don't do your best. Like, I woke up, I said, this is something coming from a spiritual guru saying, don't you do it. He says, many people do their best. And they said, I failed because I did my best. And even then I failed, Tara, what can I do? I did my best. So he said, in life, don't do your best. Do your best and a little more. It's only when you do a little more than your best that you will succeed in life. What a big lesson to learn. So you always have mentors, and that person doesn't know he's your mentor, You just learn from him. So I learned from Mr. Maker, I learned from Mr. Raheja, I learned from Mr. Lokhandwala, I learned from Dada J.P. Vaswani, and I have a list of 100 other people I could recite, from whom I have constantly learned. The number of problems and faults and mistakes I've made are plenty. Making wrong things, making wrong designs, not paying enough ideas to construction detailing, change that, different things in terms of infrastructure, development of different things that we did in terms of style, working, all that we did, but we rectified. So what we tried to do, Tara, was to every time improve it. Mr. Deepak Parekh has, of course, been my guru and mentor too, and others over there. So all of us have been, so we had it. So the learning is most important. The day you stop learning, you're dead.
Now, 2 more questions. All of you are aware of the fact that Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani is a very, very ardent follower of the social networking that you youngsters do. So what is your take on social networking for the next gen? And another thing is, they've taken sales and marketing as their first event. What would you suggest? They want to do a number of events. What do you think should be their next event? What is it that the next gen should focus on the next event? I want these two to please give us the answer.
If you want to connect with the young people, you have to do what they do. So if they Twitter, you must Twitter. If you must YouTube, you must do YouTube. If you must be Instagram with them, you have to be with them. So if you have to connect with the young people, if you have to connect with these people, you must actually go down to their level. The point is, we think that the moment you rise, you don't ever have to land your plane. We remain at 35,000 feet. The day you know that the flight has to end sometime, and then you have to be grounded, and you have to touch the ground in doing it, then all this is imperative. So there's no reason not to be in social media. There is no choice. We think we have a choice that you connect with social media or not to connect with social media. I must admit that I don't do everything myself in it, in the sense, but everything is mine. But in reality, I take assistance from people who are younger than me, who actually help me out to do all this activity. But I enjoy the part of it and doing it. So I think and believe that you really need to do it. So, and it helps me to learn. So for example, in the last 1 month, I have an Apple tutor who comes to me once a week and teaches me how to do my Apple phone, my iPad, and my Mac. And I realized that in the last 5 years, I'm using only 1/4% of the potential of a Mac. How much? Quarter of 1% of the potential of a Mac. I was amazed. I spent 1,76,000 and I'm only using 1/4% of the potential of a Mac. I mean, I must be the biggest stupid idiot in the world to be able to do it. Why couldn't we buy a cheaper Mac or the lowest end of the Mac? Because I still wouldn't be using that part of the Mac, maybe 5% of that Mac if it was not there. But today, I mean, I've just started to learn a month ago. It'll take me 2 years to actually be able to do 5% to 10% of the Mac user, but to do it. Number two, so that's one part of it. I do feel that we have to do that if you want to do it. And it keeps me young, to be honest. The second part of the whole thing is that I'm very much, besides real estate, I'm into education. So I have 14 colleges, now 15 colleges. I have 6 schools, I have 2 hospitals, and I connect with 45,000 students only in colleges. And these are my colleges, and I also speak in IIT and VJTI and IIMs and others. So the connect with the people actually keeps me alive. And I think I feel good in terms of connectivity with the people that really do. And I constantly learn from that part of the interactions to do it. So it's very, very important to continue to do that if you want to actually be a learner all your life, which I think I would love to be till the day I die. And I'll give you a short story of my father, Dr. Hiranandani. He was an ENT surgeon, very famous, Padma Bhushan, Dhanvantri Award winner. At age 82, we used to have tea early in the morning, 6:30. Usually he would make tea for me, and we would have tea together. Age 82, Dr. L.H. Hiranandani tells Niranjan, his son, that I'm going to go to Germany in order to learn a new operation. 82. I said, Dad, what's wrong with you? So he said, yeah, I want to learn. So I said, from whom, where, what? So he said, Dr. Plester in Germany, who's going to teach me an ear operation, which a new one. So I said, isn't it the same Dr. Plester who had come to you 6-7 years ago to learn an operation from you? So he said, yes, you remember him? We had dinner together with him in Willingdon Club. So I said, why would you go to learn something from him when you have actually taught him this part? He said, yeah, but he's done a new operation. So I go. He went to Germany, 82, spent 12 days there to learn a new operation. Unfortunately, when he came back after a year, he got Parkinson's, so he didn't do too many of those operations. But he was excited at age 82 to learn a new operation from a person who was his student. So why would I not want to learn from various people over here sitting in the audience? Sometimes I peg on to Aarti and I say, give me an article on this and give me some feedback on whatever it is. So many of them, Rajan gives me ideas and thoughts. You can give me so many tips.
1 minute, we're talking about Aarti. Can you please convince her that she should buy a house?
You must buy a house. Even if it's not from me. I'll still accept it because I think her suggestion is very sensible for you. Okay? All right. So,
and now the next question is, what is the next event? What should the topic be for these young guys?
I think soft skills. We know a lot of hard skills, but we don't know soft skills of how we really need to deal with people. We all talk about hard skills of things.
So
I think
guys,
soft
I don't
skills.
agree with you all on that, because the 2 things that I've learned from, he talked about having mentors. The 2 things that has taught me in my personal life, my guru for 2 things. Many years ago, I remember he came, those days we used to keep stamp paper with us. It wasn't e-thing, we had to buy the stamp paper. It also had a validity period. So I used to keep stamp papers because I had to do documents for lending to the developer Biradari. So he came down and says, do you have a stamp paper? I said, of course. So he said, give it to me. And he just signed on a blank stamp paper. And he said, here, take it. I said, what is this for? He said, oh, Deepak Parekh will tell you about it. So I said, okay. And I put it in my drawer, locked it up, and went and saw Mr. Parekh. And I said, what is this? He says, I'll explain to you. Just keep it with you. Believe you guys, every morning I should open my drawer. Is that stamp paper there? Night, lock it up. Half my hair grayed in those 1 year that he had left that stamp paper with me, because God forbid something happened, I would have been, you know what. That is one thing that he taught me, is how to trust people. You need to trust person, of course. You choose the people you trust and then leave it to that person to take the responsibility and deliver. Now the second thing that I learned from him, he's really a people's person. I remember 14 years ago, my daughter got married. I had a reception at Colaba. He was in Delhi. He took a late night flight. And at 11 o'clock, when everything was closing down, who do I see walk in? Niranjan. He could have just gone back to his house in Malabar Hill, but he came all the way to Colaba to give me that kind of blessing, me and my daughter. That's another thing that this is not my words, but you know, in life, when you go and meet people or do things for people, it's not the words that you tell them that matters, it's how you make them feel. Because how you make a person feel is that remains with you. So what he did for me and my daughter is something, the feeling that I had is something I'll never forget. So he's also been a mentor for all of us, especially me. I think Rajan wants to say something. Rajan, please do that. And if anybody has any questions, please. Do we have time for this?
15 minutes.
More 15 minutes? Great. Guys, I have been called Terror Tara not because I'm a terror. It's just that giving money is the easiest thing. Getting back was a problem. So I had to be that, and that's why I'm called Terror Tara, unfortunately. But I think I'm a likable Terror Tara, so it's okay. You want to say something else? Give them some advice?
No.
Guys, ask him for advice. Today you all are getting free.
More questions, better questions. I'd rather answer their questions rather
Yes.
than just giving advice.
All right. Any questions for you all? Anything that's come up after what we've talked today? I think Dharmesh has something. He's looking around saying, should I get up and ask? You're getting a forum to ask your...
Pass on the mic. Yeah. No, I mean share a mic. Yeah. Take it.
She's got.
She's...
Hi. Hello.
There's a question from us. Do you have a question?
Sir, with respect to current scenario with the banking, a lot of smaller developers face funding related problems, or if Tara ma'am can share some more light on that. Still, post demonetization, pre-demonetization, developers used to go into the market, the other market, and get the funds. I see a lot of developers still struggling on that end. Can you just share something how we can?
So it's a very good question. Let me share with you that one change has taken place, which is not applicable to you, but to me and to each and every person who's a developer in India post-RERA. You have to actually work on a budget of your project, which has changed pre-RERA and post-RERA. With the escrow mechanism having come into the play, the question is of, and RERA's requirement of completion of a project in a specific time frame, irrespective of your complete sale taking place. Even if you have sold 20% of your project, you have to complete 100% of it, and you may not be able to fund it. So what I have found that in a project which required in the good old days 50 crores of rupees of equity that was required for doing a particular project, I today need 125 crores of rupees of equity for the same project. Same. No change whatsoever. And that's applicable to me. If I have sales, which I have, if a person doesn't get the equivalent amount of sales, then his requirement of equity and capital and debt will go to 175, 200. So pre-RERA, post-RERA, the requirements of equity and debt have gone up at least 2.5 times. I'm saying at least. Depends again on the sales process. So if I'm taking a project today, I have to be ready for funding, which is more than what I used to do before. So many people think, oh, in the project, previous project which I did, which was pre-RERA, I needed 50 crores of rupees to invest. And today, you know, why should I not do it in 70 crores? In reality, it's not there. It's 125 crores that I need. So all of us have to know that the requirements of funds, pre-RERA and post-RERA in the real estate market has gone up tremendously, and there is no choice about it now anymore. It is a requirement because RERA has come into force. Second, you cannot delay your project beyond a particular point of time because that's the commitment that you have given. Otherwise, you've got penalty and other things which will come over there. And also your bankers will say, oh, you have extended time beyond RERA. So should I continue to give you money and funding for the particular project or any number of projects? And you will have a bad track record. So I think it's about your estimation or wrong or underestimation of the project which is going wrong with the developers, including my own company. So when I tell my people that you give me a budget, they give me a much lower budget than they should have. So now I'm correcting my company and telling my people, look at the kind of requirement of money. It is much more than what you're talking about. How can you do with so little money and you want to do this particular project? So we need to rethink all the projects that we are doing as far as this. And I'm not talking about problems of COVID. I'm not talking about problems of markets going down. I'm not even guesstimating that. If you want to add those factors, then your requirement may be even higher. So these are the challenges in the new marketplace which are there. And it's not applicable only to small builders. That's a lie. It's applicable to every builder. बड़े लोग ज़्यादा ऊंचे जाते हैं तो और गिरते हैं तो वो मर जाते हैं. छोटे बिल्डर्स कम हाइट से गिरते हैं तो वो बच जाते हैं. उल्टा है. So I don't think any big builder or small builder can afford to make the same mistake. I mean, whether you're big or small, the only difference will be you'll make a bigger mistake because you're big.
Dharmesh, my take is that I think all financial institutions, the reluctance for us to give money to developers is because we feel there is not enough equity brought in by the developer. You know, there was a time when a developer had to really get in 2, 3, 4% equity, and the balance was either sales or investors or the financial institutions. Things are changing. So if you have a developer who is ready to bring in maybe to 30, 35% equity, and you know, obviously now with RERA being there and you know the escrow mechanism, you can't take the money out. I think there are financial institutions that would look at it. But if you're going to go and tell them that, look, my equity is only 10%, it's going to be difficult. So small-time developers have to gather that kind of equity for themselves, for the project, for them to leverage and get it. And also keep in mind that reputation is ultimately that's going to count, because what you've completed, the quality that you've given, your track record is what is going to ultimately give you the money that you want from institutions. Is the question answered?
So, sir, recently, like I'm a big follower of you on social media. So I have seen that you have said to permit external commercial borrowing, so ECB, to have the cheap funding for real estate. So can you please throw some light on this?
External commercial borrowing is not cheap because it depends on the currency. So if you're borrowing in dollars, and if tomorrow there's a depreciation of the dollar and you're not covered, then you're in big trouble. So it's not easy. There are companies which have lost their shirt and almost went bankrupt because they tried to use the dollar position without a cover. So if you count ECB with a cover, charge on it. The difference may be 2 or 3% in terms of what you're getting from here and over there. So there's a challenge over there. And second, the risk profile of the person who's actually lending you this money is also now limited. So you're not seeing too much of the external commercial borrowing taking place at this point of time. There's not much. But the NBFCs and the HFIs and the banks, they are taking a lot of this money, but they do the cover completely, or they are willing to do a calculated risk, and then the spread is much higher. So that's over there. But
Also,
Tara
Smita,
should be
I
able to
feel
tell you better.
that I don't think everyone is entitled to get an ECB. I think there are certain criteria where you need to even prove to RBI how is it that you're going to. I think there has to be some dollar income with you also. So you have to get into that. So everybody can't just say, okay, I want ECB. It's maybe 2-3% cheaper, and in a project 2-3% is a lot of money. 2-3% is a lot you can save. But I think the requirement for being an ECB for borrower is a little different. I think it's Nitesh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I go for it?
Yes.
Sir, I have been watching you very, very closely from the last 4-5 years, and I've seen a very drastic shift in your operations. I've seen you move more towards data centers, warehousing, in yielding portfolios rather than residential expansion, which was your forte a few years back. Can you give us some light why you're doing this, and why moving towards yielding assets and not out towards residential?
So all the new businesses is looked after by my son, Darshan. So he wanted to diversify into new activity. So there's a platform of industrial estate, industrial platform, which is done with Blackstone at a 50-50. The data centers, which is Yota. And we have a third energy business, which is done. All three have been started by my son, Darshan, who's based in Dubai. And he wanted to get into new lines of business. I told him many years ago that why don't you look more into real estate, because he built 23 Marina, which is the second tallest residential tower in the world in Dubai. And he's very good at real estate. So I said, you know, you get into whatever I'm doing and take it over. He says, Papa, you're not yet old enough for me to take over. So he said, when you're old enough, and I'm 72, I'm waiting for getting old quickly. I hope it is 72 and a half. But so he is diversified into the new businesses, and I've been supporting him in doing that activity. So I'm seen as doing that activity, when in reality, he's doing that activity and I'm only supporting him. And in real estate, he's supporting me. So it's just about the new businesses that he wanted to start, and I've of course encouraged him. My daughter also started new businesses and I encouraged her. But actually it's their businesses and they've done extremely well. Of course, there is a struggle to put up any of the new businesses, and which are very, very challenging. So they've had to do a lot of hard work to start these new businesses, which are very challenging. But yes, the data center business is growing and likely to grow in the next couple of years and all. But I personally, if you ask me, Niranjan Hiranandani, I do focus more on real estate, but I also focus on education, health, skilling, and other aspects of it, which is my main focus, while those new businesses is his focus, but I support him. That's the reason. So the diversification activity is initiated by the next generation and not by me. But I support it, yes.
So guys, I think this has been a really, really good takeaway, learning takeaway. The two things that I have learned is that I don't think real estate is going to plummet the way everybody is thinking it will. He's been an expert. He's had 45 years of experience. There are going to be ups and downs. I think it's a good time we're all in. Don't lose heart. And I think another thing is that what he says, your next event should be on soft skills, right? So I think you all should take that up seriously and do that as an event. And thank you very much. I think you all have been a great, great audience. And if we have disappointed you, I'm sorry about it. Thank you.
If that is a thing, the applause should continue, don't you think? We would request Ronak Bandelkar to join us on stage and present a token of appreciation to Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. And now we would request Mr. Mitesh Sugla to join us and present a token of appreciation to Ms. Tara Subramaniam.